Hey everyone, back for another video here, and today we finally got the new endgame mode for Wuthering Waves, and it did not disappoint at all. I had a lot of fun playing this new endgame mode and clearing it, and I'm really happy about how they made this new mode. In this video I'm going to talk about how this game mode exactly works, how you can clear it, and some tips and tricks to help you get all the rewards. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now this new endgame mode is a lot different to the one that we had before, which was Tower of Adversity. First off, in Tower of Adversity you had 3 different towers and you could have choose which one to clear first. But in this one, you actually have to go in a certain order, starting from the first stage until the last stage, which is the stage 12. And also, unlike Tower of Adversity, where you have to beat enemies and just clear it in a certain time, in this mode, you're going to have waves of enemies, and you have to beat as many as you can in a certain time. And these waves of enemies are just going to be normal enemies, so there's going to be no bosses in them. So if you have played Honkai Star Rail, this is basically the pure fiction mode. Now how do these stages work exactly? Well, for each stage you're going to have 2 different teams, and you use them on the first and second half of the stage. Now you have to use them at the same time, so because of that, you have to build them before, and you cannot switch their equipment while you're doing it. So make sure you're completely ready before getting into it. Now for each stage there's going to be 3 different buffs that you need to look out for. The first buff is going to be your stage buff, where it's going to be the same buff throughout all the stages. So for the first half, it's going to give you full concerto energy when you start the fight, and for the second half, it's going to give you full ultimate when you start the fight. And as you can see, it's the same buff for each stage, and it doesn't change throughout stages. And for this buff, you need to use your characters that rely on their ultimate to deal damage, like Zhang Liao or Carlotta, on the second half, and use your characters that don't really need their ultimate to function on the first half, like for example Camellia. Now the second buff you're going to look for is the environment buff, or the environment report. This buff is going to be applied to both first half and second half of the stage, but it's going to be different for each stages. So for example, the first stage is going to have Glacier and Spectre damage bonus, while the second stage is going to have Fusion and Electro damage bonus. Now this environment buff is really important and helps a lot, and there's a lot of variety into it. Like as you can see on the 7th stage, it makes you lose your HP, but at the same time it gives you resonance skill damage bonus. Now as I said, this buff is really important, and you want to make sure that you're using this buff to your advantage. And the third buff, which is also another important buff, is your tokens. There are 2 different types of tokens. The unlimited tokens, where you can use them for how many times you want throughout the stages. And the second type is the limited tokens, where when you get them, you can only use them twice, but they are going to be stronger compared to unlimited tokens. Now how do you unlock these tokens exactly? Well, you can get these tokens by clearing each stage, and you will get better tokens when you go further and further down. So for the first stages, you're going to just get some unlimited tokens, but for the middle stages, you're going to get these legendary tokens, which are going to be the best tokens. Now these tokens can have variety of buffs. Some of them are good for specific characters, some of them are good with multiple characters. Like for example, this one is for characters who use Spectre Frazzle, so basically Phoebe and Spectre Rover, but this one is good for every character. So you need to be careful with the tokens that you're using. Now you might have noticed, but there are actually multiple areas in this new game mode. When you start from the top, it's blue, and then in the middle part is purple, bottom part, which is the last stage, is the red area. Now each of the stages work a bit different compared to each other. The blue stage is the easiest one of them all, but when you beat them, the rewards for them will not get resetted. So it's basically the starting towers for Tower of Adversity, and it's basically just a tutorial to get you started. The purple area, which starts from the 7th stage, is where it gets a lot harder. And in the purple area, you can see that there are 3 passages going to the 9th, 10th and 11th, but even though there are 3 ways, you still have to beat all of them before you can continue to the last stage. And each of these stages actually have something different compared to other stages, which is a debuff to your characters. Now for each of these stages, there is going to be an elemental resistance to the enemies, where it basically prevents you from using that element on that specific fight. As you can see, this one has fusion resistance and air resistance, the middle one has havoc and electro, and the third one has glacial and spectral resistance. Now you might think that you need 4 different teams to be able to beat this mode, but no, these resistance are only going to be applied to that specific half. So glacial resistance is going to be applied to the first half of the stage, and spectral resistance is going to be applied only to the second half. So even if you're using those characters that got a debuff, then you can just switch them around and use them on the other stage. As you can see, I use Zhang Liao for the havoc resistance and Camellia for the electro resistant half. And then after beating all of these stages in the purple area, now you can get to the final stage, which is basically the final boss of this mode. Now in the 12th stage, it's not that much different, but the buff is going to be generic, so every character basically can use it, and also all of your tokens become infinite. Now it's still unknown that this final stage is going to get changed in the future or not, but we have to see what they do for the next reset. But for this one, all of your tokens become unlimited, so even if you're out of them, you can use them again for the final stage. So you don't actually need to save up your tokens for the final stage because you just get unlimited tokens. And lastly, for this final stage, there's going to be infinite waves where you can beat as many enemies that you want in that certain time. Now that was everything that you needed to know about the stages themselves, but how do you exactly get the points you need to clear the stages? The point system is really simple. For each enemy that you beat, you're going to get a certain amount of points. The more enemies you beat, the more points you get. And if you clear all the waves, you actually get extra points as well, besides the final stage, because there's unlimited waves in that stage. There's also another buff while you're clearing the waves, where when you get close to the final waves, you're going to get a buff that comes up and it's going to tell you that what it does. One buff gives you a full ultimate when you get it, and the other buff will make your crit rate 100%, so all of your attacks will crit. Now you get one of these buffs for each half. The first half you're going to get that full ultimate, while the second half you're going to get that 100% crit rate. So that's also another thing that you need to look out for. And from the points that you can get the rewards that you want. So that's basically everything that you need to know about how this mode works exactly. Now here are some tips and tricks that you can use to clear this mode easier and faster. The first tip is some of the characters are a bit different in this mode compared to Tower of Adversity in terms of meta. Some characters that are good in the tower are not going to be that good in this one, and also vice versa, where some of the characters that are not really that good in tower are going to be really good in this mode. Here are some examples. Rochia is insane in this mode because of how good her grouping is. Carlotta is a bit worse in this mode because some of her attacks are single target, and in this mode you want to deal damage to as many enemies as you can. Yinlin, even though she's a bit worse, it's not as much as I thought it would be. You're not going to be able to use your coordinated attacks because when that enemy dies, you cannot apply another coordinated attack to the next wave of enemies. But at the same time, her ultimate has a good range and it deals a good amount of damage that it kind of balances out. And also, debuffers are not that good in this game mode. Characters like Phoebe and Spectre Rover are not actually good in this game mode because when you apply that stack of debuff onto the enemies, when that enemy dies, that stack is not going to be applied to the next wave. So because of that, most of the time you're going to use Phoebe against enemies that have no Spectra Frazzle, which is kind of weird to me because Phoebe was just released and she's not that good in this game mode, but Rochia, which was released in the previous patch, is really good in this one. I don't know how that makes sense, but okay. So basically AoE damage is going to be the best type of damage in this mode. Another thing that you need to know is about the points and how much you need for the rewards. As you see it right here, for each stage that you clear, you get a rating that starts from B to S. Now, to be honest, this rating doesn't mean anything, so you don't have to really worry about getting S on every single stage. Now, the rewards that you get from the purple stage and the red stage are different, and their points are calculated separately for the rewards. The purple area is called the chasm, while the third area, which is the red area, is called torrent. Now for the purple area, you need 15,000 points to be able to get all of the rewards. And there are 5 stages. Now you might think that you need to get 3k on each stage to be able to get all the rewards, but that's not how it is. You can actually get more than 3,000 points for each stage. As you can see in one of the stages, I almost got 4,000 points. So what you can do is try to get as many points as you can from the first stages, which are going to be the 7th and 8th stage, so you will have an easier time getting points and getting the rewards. Now you can try to use all of your powerful tokens on one stage to get a lot of points, and then use your weaker tokens on other stages, or you can divide your powerful tokens between the stages so you can get the same amount of points for each stage. Now these both strategies can work, but for some of the stages the buff is going to be really helpful to you, like for example this coordinated attack buff, while for some stages stages, the buff is really not going to be helpful if you don't have the characters, like for example, this stage where it gives buff when you apply Spectrofrazzle. So I think trying to use your powerful tokens on one stage only is going to be a better way to do it. And speaking of tokens, token management is going to be the most important thing in this mode. And how you do it is actually really simple. When you unlock the tokens, first see how many tokens you can use for your characters. Some of these tokens are really good for 1 or 2 characters, like for example, this one where it gives buff to Spectrofrazzle characters. So if you don't have those characters, this token is completely useless. So first try to see how many tokens you can use to your advantage. Now if you can use a lot of tokens, then you won't have a problem and you can just use those tokens on most stages. Now if you can't use most of those tokens, then what you can do is save your best tokens and use it all on one stage, like for example the 11th stage where you can get the most points, because there is going to be more enemies and you can get more points from each enemy. And then use your weaker tokens or even some of those unlimited tokens on the other stages. This way you will have a lot of points on one stage and you don't have to worry about all of the stages and getting that 3k point. And again, as I said before, make sure to build your teams at the same time because you cannot switch your gear like Tower of Adversity. Thank you all so much for watching the video till now. I really enjoyed this new game mode and I'm really excited to see your opinions as well in the comments down below. And while you're going down there, make sure to subscribe as well. Now this new endgame mode is fun if you do have some characters to beat with it. Like if you have only single target characters, like for example GNC and Carlotta, then this mode is probably not going to be that much fun for you. But if you have some characters like for example Camellia, Zhang Liao, Jian, then this mode is really fun when you're trying to figure out the ways to make your rotations faster, to go through everything faster and deal as much damage as you can and beat as many enemies as you can. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed this video and I'll be back for another video. Bye bye!